All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Insights of All Trades podcast. You're listening to episode 5, where we dive in deep with Taylor Foster. Before I get into that, I'm sure if you're watching the video, you're going to see that Nick is not here with us today. And as we talked about in our pilot episode, he is out in Oklahoma right now fulfilling Army obligations. And while we are bummed that Nick's not here with us, I think we put forth a really good podcast episode today. You'll see that we aren't in the same place, aka Nick's basement, if you're watching the video, and we're at our friend's Andrew's. You might hear a couple weird sounds come up, like some phones ringing and some cats meowing, so sorry about that, but I think it came out really well, and yeah, I hope you enjoy. Our insight today comes from Tommy Stokes in Bensalem, PA, and his insight was life doesn't favor weakness. And although I don't have Nick here to pick his mind about said insight, I think that is something uncomfortable to talk about, but at the same time, very true. And speaking of things that are uncomfortable, but very true, this whole conversation today, I think, is something some people may feel is an uncomfortable conversation in terms of, large goal setting and intense work ethic, everything that goes into that category of, I guess, life mentalities and the pursuits you're chasing. So just to put it out there, I know it may be a little bit uncomfortable and hard to wrap your head around. And if you disagree with that, that's fine. We do not claim to have the answers. And truthfully, I'm sure we don't. I'm sure a couple years from now we'll look back and think we could have adjusted our mentalities for the better a little bit. So with all of that put out there, I hope you enjoy it and realize that this podcast is just us trying to be very vulnerable with our ideas. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Taylor Foster. He's one of my best friends. He is pursuing a bodybuilding career. He is going to be beginning his first of 3 years in a doctor of physical therapy program at Alvernia, and he just got a CSCS today, actually. So without further ado, Taylor Foster.
Welcome to Insights of All Trades with Cole and Nick. This is where we talk to people we meet along our journeys through medicine, military service, sports, education, and beyond. We hope you enjoy.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Insights of All Trades podcast. This is episode 5 with Taylor Foster. Taylor, how are you doing, dude?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
So just to introduce y'all to Taylor, he is one of my greatest friends, and honestly, probably like the closest friend that I have, and told him multiple times. Already my best man in my wedding, not even engaged yet, but just to give everyone an idea of how close we are going forward, because we're going to jump into some pretty deep stuff. I'm excited to talk about it. But just to kick us off, just got accepted in a PT school. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I got into Alvernia, and I applied to 5 schools. Only got into 1, but it's the only one that matters if you get one.
Which ones did you apply to?
I ended up applying to Temple, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, Hampton, and Alvernia, obviously, and then Virginia Commonwealth College.
Nice.
So
going into PT school this fall, leading up to that, what did that path look like?
So there was a lot. Honestly, when I first started school, I didn't. I started out engineering because I like the creativity of architecture. I really thought that I would be doing something similar with that. Got in my first year of school, didn't really like all the math that was involved in that, so I tried to figure out what else I'm interested in. Obviously, exercise, lifting, bodybuilding, that all kind of summates into physical therapy in a way. I had other interests as well, but that was really probably the biggest interest, I think, just because that way, not only is not that it should all be able to pay, but the pay is good.
Yeah.
And also, you're helping people like a lot more than you would be in something else. I didn't want to do something where it was helping people, but not really helping someone. So I didn't want to be giving people medicine. I didn't want to be I would actually be helping people, like hands-on helping people and getting to know someone and really guiding them.
And it kind of stems from the bodybuilding that you're already involved with. I know we'll jump real deep into that later, but been into fitness for a while, so something where you're kind of using fitness as an outlet as,
exactly,
I don't know, I mean, quite literally therapy for people to get better.
And
Yeah,
for,
that's cool.
Yeah, and for myself, I mean, honestly, it's like exercise in general is really, I know you know this as well, but therapeutic for body and mind. People don't really put those two together sometimes. How about how much it helps your mind as well? But
I
really,
agree, dude. It was kinesiology, right, that you did
yeah,
then
yep, in Penn State,
for your undergrad.
yep.
And that's a 4-year program. And then PT school, was that 2 or 3?
That's 3 year round, so continuous. I think there's like maybe 2 week breaks in between the semesters, maybe 3, something like that, but it's not long.
Gotcha. Do you know much about the curriculum?
I know all I know really is the first semester, so like I only looked at it a few times so far just because it's still a few months away. But I know advanced anatomy, advanced physiology, like clinical aspects, practices, like general clinical aspects.
Gotcha.
There's a few other things that I'm not really sure. I'll get more into like clinical rotations stuff towards the second and almost my whole third year will be clinical rotations. But
Is it so? Just comparing to pharmacy school, since that's pretty much all I know. Our program, once you get into like the PharmD portion, it's 4 years, but the first 3 are didactic, and the last year you're only like on site. You're only doing like clinical rotations, and you aren't at all like in a classroom. Is it kind of like that?
it is kind of like that. The last year, that's like the second year's like or no, that's what the third year's like. The second year you're in the classroom and in clinical. Third year's I think you're still in the classroom a little bit, but it's almost completely clinical.
Gotcha.
As far as I know, at least.
Cool, dude.
Different programs have different standards, but they're all pretty similar.
Awesome. So anyway, jumping in to what I know we're going to dive into is bodybuilding. So I don't want to steal your thunder. How do you get into that? And, just take us through that walk.
That's a crazy, crazy story and walk. I actually started lifting because, believe it or not, it was for aesthetic purposes because I wasn't comfortable with my body. I wasn't confident, which I think is a very big one that people usually end up entering lifting, entering training, entering sports, anything like that.
And this is real young. Like
Yeah,
I remember like in 7th grade,
Yeah.
us thinking like, man, Taylor's like way larger than us now. What's that all about?
I think I started at either 11 or 12. And from the get go, I was serious about it. Like I know a lot of times people will get into it and like they'll do like twice a week, 3 times. I was immediately from the get go like 5 days a week.
Yeah, which in hindsight, when I think about people that young, like 11 and 12-year-olds, to think about like an 11 and 12-year-old being super committed to like a fitness journey is crazy to me.
Honestly, like looking back at it, like I've looked back at it multiple times and just been like, the point of where I am now, if I were to do it all over again, like it seems impossible. Like
Yeah.
It honestly doesn't even seem like I should have been able to do it. Like, because there were days where with 2-a-days in soccer, I would literally go to soccer in the morning at 6 and then go home, eat, and then go to the gym and train during the middle of the day, and then go back to soccer practice in the evening, and then like sometimes stay later after soccer practice to do more conditioning.
Yeah.
And how I was able to do it and how my body was able to keep up, I have no clue, but I loved it. Like, I don't know what it was. I just really liked putting my body through the immense amount of stress that I was able to put it through. I'm not nowhere near done, but back to where I started. So a girl told me that she wanted me to look more like the upperclassmen.
Oh no!
Yeah, so I'm sure she cares that she'll know. She knows who she is. Nothing against that. Thank you actually for doing that and putting me on this path. I'm actually thankful. But so that's really what it started from. So the very next day, went to the gym, Will's gym, which is just down the hill from our high school, and I went in and I was just told my mom was good friends with the gym owner at the time. She had like a photography studio in the back. Mm-hmm. So I go in and I go home and I tell my mom like, hey, like I want to start lifting. Like, what do I do? And she's like, well, tell Todd. And I was like, Todd, at this point, you're an 11-year-old kid. This guy that
and Todd's the owner of the gym.
Yeah, and literally benches 500 pounds, massive guy, absolutely like.
And he had his pro card in bodybuilding, right? I
don't think so.
Oh, no?
He competed in bodybuilding. I know he competed at the Arnold. I want to say the Arnold Amateur. I'm not 100% sure on that. Don't quote me. He does hold multiple world records, I'm pretty sure, for like bench press for his age and weight, which is still really impressive. But like big guy, 11 years old. It's very scary to me. So it took a lot of balls actually to
Yeah,
just
he's a
tell
very
him.
stoic person.
Yeah, like,
Well-intentioned, but stoic.
yes. So I go up to him like, hey, I want to start lifting weights. Now I'm sure at the point, because like people come to me, and this is no bash on anyone that comes up to me and asks me to help them train, but I'm like, now from I've been able to look back and see it through his perspective, from like the same similarities that happened to me. I'm sure whenever I went up to him and asked him for that, like he was probably almost guaranteed thinking that like this is gonna be a waste of my time. This kid is not gonna stick with this. Like blah, all of that comes with
Yeah.
that. Because I know I think that too, and that's not to shame anybody. It's just the large percent of people do not stick with an exercise program, and it's not easy. So
Yeah, especially with a really young, at the time, scrawny kid.
yeah, like literally like 100 and probably 10 pounds soaking wet. So he ran me through like everything. My basic first program was just all the machines. Did all the machines for circuit sets of like 3 or 4 sets, and did anywhere from 8 to 12 reps. When I first started, I was like, didn't really know what I was trying to do, like what I was like my goals or anything like that. I was just wanting to look better. Didn't know how that process necessarily worked, but I seen a magazine on the bench in the gym. And Brandon Curry, I know that's who it was. That was standing on the front of the magazine. I was like, I don't know who he is. I didn't know his name. Didn't know anything about him. I just knew that I was like, hey, I want to look like that. And that was within probably the first month of me training. And I never really read through the magazines or anything, honestly, for the amount that's in there. I really didn't look through them that much, except maybe like in the bathroom. But I didn't know he was an IFBB pro. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what takes. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that I wanted to look like that. And so like from that moment on, it was just, I've never had any kind of problems with motivations. Like the longest amount of time I've taken out of the gym consecutively has been 8 days, and that's because I fully tore my hamstring. And after the 8 days, I was back in training upper body.
Dang. So get into training daily, beginning in junior high. I remember in high school, you kind of started tampering with powerlifting, and at the time you were going for your age group benching world record.
Yeah.
Came extremely close.
I honestly don't even like to talk about it. But yeah, so the for my age and body weight, I believe it was 16 to 17-year-olds, 198 pounds. I think I was like 190, 191, and the bench press world record was 335. So we went to this meet. I can't remember. It was up towards Lancaster. It was a good ways, and we got there, and I felt good, felt everything good, and warmed up. Did one set of warm up at like 285, something around there. Just flew up. Everything felt great. Then missed my next 2 shots. I went straight to 3-4. No, the world record was like 330 point something. So I went straight to 335 because I was like, I'm just gonna break the record. And I missed it on both attempts. So like the whole time afterwards, I was just and I got a trophy still because I placed well enough for my age group. But like I just wanted to smash the trophy into the ground because it meant nothing to me. I did not want it. Like,
yeah.
So, but my mom took it and like she kept it, so I didn't destroy it. But the whole time I just felt awful because I felt like because my whole a lot of my family and friends I know came along, and like I just felt so bad because they all came that way just to watch me lose, not lose but fail.
Yeah.
And looking back now, like even if I don't like to talk about it, it was definitely one of the points where sometimes you feel like you're on top of the world, you're the biggest fish in the pond, and you just really realize like
the whole ocean out there.
Gotta be a whole nother animal if you want to keep moving forward.
I had something similar happen to me, and I'll try to preface this in a way that doesn't put me in a bad light because in hindsight it sounds pretty crazy. So I talked about before on our pilot episode how I had this notebook and I would write every day like I will wrestle at individual states this wrestling season.
I thought you were crazy.
And yeah, I mean, people I was close with like you and our other close friends in high school knew that I was obsessed year round, like working towards this goal. And I did not achieve the goal. And not too long after my senior season ended, we were at our class night. And at class night, they give like a bunch of awards, including many that you don't, like scholarships and awards that you don't apply for. They just award them to you. And I didn't know that D6, as in District 6 in Pennsylvania, gave single sportsmanship awards out across the district for an athlete and it goes by. I think just within a district, it might be like one for a boy and one for a girl, or it could go by sport. I'm not entirely sure. But the moral of this story is I found out that night that I won the sportsmanship award, and I was so aggravated. And please do not misconstrue this. In hindsight, I'm happy that I represented myself in a way throughout my wrestling career that I did get recognized for it. That's awesome. But in that moment, in my frustrated mindset for having not achieved my goals, I went home and I threw away my sportsmanship medal thing. And I believe either my mom or my stepdad got out of the trash can because I still have it today. And again, in hindsight, know that I should have been more appreciative of that award. But yeah, I feel what you mean when you're so like intimately tied to a goal and you don't get it. Phew.
I truly believe that that's one of the greatest points for like turning points. If it can also be a turning point for a negative, but
Yeah,
it can be a huge turning point for a positive if you take it in the right light. Like if you learn from that failure and move on from that and take the lessons with you and don't leave them behind. I think that's a very, very powerful thing that you can learn from. And in the gym, you're constantly, one of the reasons I love it is because, and you don't realize this at first, but my goal, at least, maybe not everyone's goal, but I'm training to failure. Like I'm pushing myself until like I literally can't lift anymore.
Yeah.
My body is just like it's completely depleted, cannot go on. And what you're doing is you're pushing your body to failure, and you do that multiple times. And you just keep pushing that failure point a little further every day. And
dude.
whenever you do it, it really doesn't seem like you're moving that far forward, but you look back after a year and the amount of progress you make, it's actually crazy. And people don't get that. They waste the time. So I want to say Tom Bill, you said this. People will look at their level 7 and they want to get to level 7,000, but they see someone else at level, say, 10,000, and then they're like, well, I'll never reach level 10,000, so why should I even try to get to level 7,000? Where instead they should be focused on getting to level 8, not level 7,000. So I really like that.
Dude, I wish I could have got that in the gym so much earlier.
Me too.
Because instead of being happy or excited to push my muscles to failure, I'd instead be upset that I'd be looking up to people like older than us. Say when I first got into lifting was my freshman year of high school, be looking up to people that are like seniors putting up way much more on the bench press. Like I was a 106 pounder my freshman year, didn't have to cut weight. So I'm like, my goal at the time was like, man, I just want to put up 135 on the bar so people stop seeing me with like struggling with 25s or whatever. And I'd see people like repping up however much, like 315 in the bench, see people like Todd and Clint Imes in the gym putting up so much weight, and it's like, man. And you become tied to like the numeric amount of a weight or like any goal of life instead of pushing the needle back a little bit further every single time. It took me a long time to get that. I'm still guilty of being tied to like, I don't know, some goal on the bench or some other thing with a workout, maybe like a run, and I don't get that time. I'm so flustered and so frustrated. Instead of taking a step back and be like, okay, push my body extremely hard, found where failure was today. Now when I do this again, I'm going to fail a little bit more forward next time. I'm going to,
Exactly. I'm trying to think. I was going to say something.
Anyway, we'll come back to it.
We'll come back.
I'm sure mentality of lifting will be, or just pushing yourself will be intertwined with.
Yeah, the whole time. I think like people miss on the value of actually pushing yourself to that extreme. Like that doesn't, you really, especially now, like that's really not popular to really push yourself that hard anymore.
No, in fact,
in any area.
This might be, my own delusional self-thinking this, but I feel like people of our age group, at least when we were coming up through high school, and I felt this way early in college, it like wasn't cool to be pushing yourself extremely hard. It wasn't cool to be like so immersed and not want like balance in your life. It wasn't cool to go extremely hard year round at whether it was a sport or
school, anything. Yeah. And I mean, I still feel like it's that way. Like, because there will be times where I could be doing something completely not in line with my goals and what the other people are doing or I get invited to. I'm just like I just don't even have the energy for it. Like it's just not even on my plate. Like it's just not even. If I'm just not promoting growth, I'm not interested anymore. And that's the point. I think that if you really want to be, incredibly successful on a whole nother level,
Yeah.
you have to be able to get to that point where you're so focused that if it's not moving you forward, it's moving you backwards. You don't stay in the same place. You either move forward or you move backwards.
Yeah, I agree. And what I have trouble with now is recognizing that there's like, at least I think I've arrived at this conclusion now, is that like there's no moral obligation or there's no, I don't know, ethical code that ties you to having to push yourself that hard and be that successful. Because for a while, it made me upset, and I don't think I was in the right for feeling this way, but it made me upset when other people around me that I was close with wasn't pushing themselves extremely hard. And it took me, my later years in high school and up until now in college to realize that you can't hold other people to the standards you hold yourself to, especially when your standards by any sane person or or just like miles above what they could expect them.
Yeah, a quote real quick if I can remember it right. I'm gonna try. I have no idea who said it, but it was something like along the lines of, my standards are so incredibly high that it just is any normal person would break under the amount of immense pressure that you put yourself under, and even if they break me, but I won't stop setting those standards at that same level.
Yeah, not only like with daily standards, but same with like goals you set for yourself. I honestly think that for us, like the goals we have set for ourselves, especially like the goals that like I've seen you like write down and like have hanging up, like the goals that you have, any, I don't know, sane person or what the majority of people
like
are,
99%.
they would be like, you are out of your mind. Like if someone fully believed in you without knowing you, I would be like, man, that person's kind of crazy, even though I wholeheartedly believe in you. The same for like
I get completely what you're saying. I completely agree. I'll actually like look at my own goals, and I know I've heard this before as well. Like if you're not getting embarrassed to tell other people your goals are that big, your goals aren't big enough. Like you need to have immensely huge goals, because even if your goals are so big, and you're more than likely you're not going to get I don't even want like saying that because I don't like to think negatively.
Yeah.
But even if your goals are so immensely big, it's practically impossible for you to reach them. There is still that chance for you to reach them, but even if you don't reach them, you're going to be somewhere so far above if you would have set your goal lower than somewhere that you actually anticipate on hitting. And I know you agree with that as well.
Yeah. I've heard you say this a bunch of times, especially right before a big bench set. You'd be like, I don't know, have however much weight on the bar and be like, I'm going for 20, but I might shoot for the moon and land among the stars. In this context, meaning Taylor would get, I don't know, 5 less reps than 20. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that with the goals you set, I feel like it would be more fulfilling to set an enormous goal and land lower than what that goal is, but still have maxed out your full potential, then 100%. Set a low goal, reach it, and then just be stagnant.
100%. Actually, like I don't even know, because I know goal setting is one of the biggest things upon like millionaires, billionaires, all the successful people. I don't know where I picked it up, but I started setting goals at a really young age. Probably it might have been Clinton Todd maybe that really enforced that on me.
Mm-hmm.
But goal setting has always been a really big deal of mine, and I've always written down the things that I've wanted to do and the things that I've been able to see myself do in the future. And I think that has a huge impact as well, because you're making it concrete. You're really writing it down, and it's like when I was in I think I was in 8th grade, maybe 8th or 9th grade, and I was doing bench press and I failed on the bench press first time. Definitely not the last time, but first I wasn't using a spotter. I was just like, I've done this before, I'll be fine. And I was doing bench press and I was like, I'm gonna get another one. I did not get another one, and I did not have a spotter. And it would probably sat on my chest for a few seconds before one of the upperclassmen in the gym saw me and ran over and grabbed it and ripped it up off my chest. And I was like, that was probably the most embarrassed I ever was in the gym. And I went home and I knew I never wanted to feel like that. And I just wrote down my goal, like the goal that I wanted to bench X amount of weight. I have the paper somewhere at home. I wish I would have thought to bring it. but it was an absurd amount of weight. It was like I wanted to bench like 500 pounds before I graduated or something like that. Like, which obviously is not impossible, but insane.
Yeah.
And so, but that was like one of those things that just set me off. I've done that before with other sports and other things where I know with wrestling, it happened to me my sophomore year because I kept getting bumped up in weight. And I was just so sick of losing that one of the summer tournaments that we went to our sophomore year, going into junior year. After I lost, I went into the bathroom and I just like grabbed the sink and stared at myself so hard in the eyes and just squeezed the absolute like as hard as I could. Like I thought I was gonna break the sink. I was squeezing it so hard. I was staring at myself and I was like, "You will not feel like this again." And the following year, I think I only lost like 10 matches.
Yeah, I've had too many similar experiences with wrestling, namely, but those things, those failures that like you get so frustrated about, to let it fuel you. Like, I wish other people, like, I mean this in a positive way, I wish more people could have experienced failures like that and had similar reactions to them.
You use it for gas instead of to let on the brakes.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, I feel like so many people, not just of our age group, but just in general, could see the same exact obstacle where some of us, like you and I, at this point of our lives, would see the obstacle and be like, okay, this obstacle is in front of us. I'll either go over it, under it, around it, like
through it.
Yeah, regardless, like we are going to conquer this thing, and like it's there. We admit it's there, but like we're going to conquer this. Whereas someone could have like perceive that same thing, or have that same obstacle, but their personal perception of it is like, oh well, this is where failure, my boundaries end, or like my full potential ends. Like I guess I'll stay here, and I mean that in a way that not in to put myself on a pedestal, because I'm still could be better in monumentally, like a bunch of different ways. But if there's one thing I wish I could instill in a bunch of the people I care about, it would be to not see the obstacles around them as something that's unsurmountable.
I think it's a very, very good mindset to have. Because like even the 4-minute mile, nobody believed that could be broken until somebody did it, and then
something like, Bannister.
Mike maybe.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, don't quote me. But yeah, he broke the 4-minute mile, and then I think it was like not even a month later, someone else did it. And
and since then, like I'm pretty sure like high school kids have done it since then.
Sure. Well, I mean, Gary is ridiculously fast.
Like 13 seconds off.
Or something. So it's obviously possible. I think anything is essentially possible. I think human potential is pretty much limitless. Like I don't think there's anything that like you can't do if you really put your mind to it. If you actually put your mind to it and you really full-heartedly like put in the effort and the time, you might fail at what you want to do, but it doesn't mean you're not going to get insanely further than what you would have if you didn't. I
agree. Did you ever listen to or read any of Hal Elrod's stuff? He wrote the book The Miracle Morning, I think.
I know exactly what book you're talking about. It's on my reading list. I haven't.
Dude, okay, so this doesn't come from The Miracle Morning. He wrote different books. This one's from a previous book he wrote, The Miracle Equation. And although I didn't read it yet, I was listening to a podcast he did talking, kind of just pumping stuff out about that book. And he said that this, quote unquote, miracle equation to achieve your largest goals is to combine and intertwine extraordinary effort consistently over time with unwavering belief that your goals will manifest into reality. And I've had like that thought at the forefront of my mind with like any obstacle that comes up, or like any goal that I set, as like almost just accepting it as like, yeah, this isn't even like, something that I'm striving for now. I'm just gonna like plug in these two variables, even though they're extreme variables of extraordinary effort and unwavering belief. Is like, oh, I'm just gonna do these two things and I'm gonna reach my goal.
Honestly, dude, that mindset is so important. But big facts, the way you study, it made me study more. Honestly, study more and harder, because I like up until I really realized how much you were putting into study. My efforts were probably they were still like way more than the average student, but compared to yours are ridiculous. But mine were still pretty suboptimal compared to yours. And I was like, you know what? Cole's studying this much, like there's no reason I shouldn't be able to also study that much. And like, cause like if you want to go ahead and go off on that, you can, but if people don't know, you're a freak when it comes to that.
Yeah, I don't well I don't want to go fully down the rabbit hole just to I don't want to take away
Yeah,
from
no,
all
you're
the
fine.
hard work that you put in, but like right now the kind of the minimum I set for myself is when I'm outside of class each day during the school year, like weekends included, breaks included, I have to study at least 6 hours outside of class. It might mean deleting social media, which I've done a couple semesters now,
Very
or
impressive
like
in this time and age as well.
yeah, things like that where I don't see it as an unsurmountable obstacle. I just try to accept that there's levels to success, and in this context the success is just how much can I study.
Mhm.
And I think about all the things I can control. It might be time spent eating, sleeping, on social media, talking, things like in transition phases, like time spent walking from place to place. Little things. This is going to sound insane for people that don't think
Yeah,
this
I
way,
love it, though. I
but
love
like
it.
during a study break, to minimize the like I don't know. I actually, to rephrase it, maximize the amount of things I can do in like a 10-minute study break, since I'll often study for like an hour and take a 10-minute study break before I'll come back. I'll do things like I'll go put something in the microwave for like X amount of time and see how much I can get done like
Wow.
before that timer runs out on the microwave. I'm always thinking that way, especially during the academic year. Like, how much time can I like, how
Invest.
efficiently can I be with my time and still do them well? Like, I don't want to half butt a bunch of different things just to say I did X amount
yeah.
of things. But
Quality over quantity always.
yeah, always. And I'm doing that with the little minute things so that way I can invest way more time into, in this case, studying and learning. But yeah, so to realize that there's levels of whatever it is you're working towards. It's not just studying, it's all walks of life. I feel like,
No, I completely agree.
in
Yeah.
terms of if there's something you can make progress in, whatever it is, even things that I personally haven't immersed myself into, whether it's learning languages, learning instruments, martial arts, undoubtedly there is levels to the way you can make progress. And it, I feel like, falls back on the extraordinary effort you're willing to make, and also, well, asterisk next to that, over time, extraordinary effort over time, and then to also like believe that your goals are going to manifest into reality, to actually like tell yourself and convince yourself that this is actually going to come true. Otherwise, I feel like doing that acts as a positive feedback loop, in that if you aren't believing that your goals are going to come to fruition, why go through however much pain it takes, or pass up all the parties, all the fun stuff, to put forth an extraordinary amount of effort if your goals aren't actually going to manifest.
Yeah, I have a few things to unpack with that. So first of all, one of the biggest things with you that like made me study more, and also like when I seen the guy on the magazine, it was like a big one when I was doing my true novice training, I guess, whatever you call it, whenever I was still coming up with it.
Mm-hmm.
One of my biggest motivating factors was like, this person can do it, like why wouldn't I be able to do it? Like, you can study that much, why can't I study that much? You know what I mean? And I think that application factors can be an extremely important tool to utilize. If someone else can do it, there's no reason why you can't either.
Yeah, I agree. Part of that, I think the first time I heard someone say this, or I guess in this case type it, on a social media post, Kyle Snyder, who's Olympic gold medalist, I can't even remember how many times he won nationals for Ohio State. I think like 3. But so phenomenal athlete. He put up this picture that still like sticks out to me. It was him like bent over in the practice room, like sweat pouring off his head, and the caption was, "How long can you suffer?" And I wrote that down on a sticky note because I have like this wall of sticky notes that I set in front of my desk to look at before I study, quite literally, like to prime myself before I study. I'll like read across these sticky notes. But that one sticks out to me so much. And I don't mean in a like suffering in the context of I'm trapped in something I can't get out.
Yeah.
Like, how much can you willingly suffer towards whatever goal that matters most to you? It's deep.
It's
It's hard to think about for people that want to, and again, don't think there's moral obligation to do this, but for those that have some big dream and think, wow, sure would be nice if I had like this career or this amount of income, this car, this house, yada yada yada.
I really think it's a mindset, honestly, because like you develop your mindset over time in the same way that you develop anything else, the same way you develop a physical muscle. You have to develop your mindset, and one of the biggest changes that I was able to like really try to apply would be like, so I would see, say, a super nice car, Lamborghini, anything nice. I'd be like, I'll have, instead of saying I want that, or like screw that guy for having that nice car, instead I'm like, I'll have that. Like one day I'll have one of those, and not even necessarily because I want one, but just being able to use that instead of saying like, why does he get that nice car? Like something from an envious standpoint versus having a motivational standpoint on it. Like good for him. Like he's worked hard. He's got that car. Whether or not he did or not doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can apply that and be like, well, what do I want?
Yeah, I know coming from you, it's not even like it's a materialistic thing of like the dollar sign that you can bring in or the quality of car or anything else that you can bring in. It's just to be able to say, like, if I wanted this thing, fill in the blank, I could work hard enough and do the right things over a period of time to achieve that or acquire that or whatever it is. Just want to clarify that for us putting it out there. We don't want to put this out there in a way that, puts other people down if they aren't striving for these things, especially when it comes to materialistic things. That's the last thing that we have on our mind in these goals that we are striving towards. But if anything comes out of this, we just hope that it resonates with people that are like-minded, let you know that there's some other people out there, same feelings and striving in the same way. And if anyone's on the fence about believing in themselves and the enormous amount of things they can accomplish, then
jump in.
Yeah, jump in.
Don't sit on the fence.
A fun way that maybe not fun is the right word, but a way that I've been articulating how I feel lately, at least since I've come home from college, since we're doing this podcast at a time that I've only been home from a couple weeks from school. And when I talk to family members or friends from home I haven't seen in a while, a way that I've been putting it is that I can't tell, and I mean this kind of jokingly, but kind of seriously, I can't tell if I am lucky enough to have discovered at such a young age what I'm fully capable of.
I've thought that as well.
Or am I just like a grandiose schizophrenic? And I kind of say it in a joking light, but I also mean it. Like, it is absurd, the level of, I don't know.
Potential you see?
Yeah, in that, I just think it's limitless. Like, I honestly just believe deep down, and I know you feel the same way. Like, deep down.
That's scary because you literally just put your words like the exact same. I feel like
that whatever you set, like, no matter how large, you will. It's not that, like, you have the skills now to do it. It's just that you will do whatever it takes within your, like,
literally
code of conduct.
Yeah,
like, as long as it's within your moral and ethical code of conduct, you will do whatever it takes over a period of time to get to that point. Like, it's not because you have some special thing that other people don't have. Like, that's not why we feel that way about our goals. Like, we put it out there because we think anyone can achieve it. You just have to adopt the mentality we believe that of, I'm gonna do whatever it takes, no matter how much pain or.
And like, I don't want to promote myself or market myself. But
Go for it.
The back of these shirts that's literally what that means. That's essentially the whole meaning behind the whatever it takes. It's on my weightlifting belt. It's on everything. It's like, I will do whatever it takes to achieve my goals within reason. Like, as long as I'm not gonna hurt anyone else, if any otherwise, it's whatever it takes. It doesn't matter. But if I won't do something that's gonna compromise someone else.
Yeah.
But otherwise, whatever it takes.
Yeah, I agree. It is, I think, hard for.
It's very hard.
It's a hard pill to swallow to be like, I don't know. I can understand why people with more life experience than us, people much older than us, would hear something like this, especially right now, even though there's things that we're proud to have done so far, not anywhere close to what we want to achieve. So for someone older than us to hear this podcast now, it would be like expected of them and very, I don't know,
I don't
normal
blame
of them
them, yeah.
to be like, they're just naive. They're out of their minds in what they think they're fully capable of. They aren't bogged down by these things in life.
I can't even count the amount of times that I've said things that I'm going to do or want to do and that people have bogged me down with it. And I've literally been able to go and do it anyway. People that have told me that I won't get into PT school. People that have told me that like, actually the biggest step, I think I was 17 or 18. Someone I looked up to very highly I told them that I wanted to compete in the Olympia. And they told me, that's a good goal to have, but maybe you should be a little more realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, realism kills dreams. Don't ever be realistic. I don't think realistic should even be used.
Yeah.
In certain situations, yes, but not when it comes to your goals. And they told me to be more realistic, and that the amount of time, the amount of drugs, and the amount of other stuff that's involved, and the amount of food that's eaten, everything that goes into that is just like you couldn't do it. It's not possible. And ever since that, I don't know what it was, but there was like a switch turned on. Because I am also the type of person, if someone tells me I can't do something, like I'm bound by law now to do that.
Yeah.
But like, and people will tell you that as well, within reason. But like, ever since that moment, there's been a switch on it. Like now I have this unrelenting vision to compete in the Olympia, if not win it. Like my goal is to win, but if I even compete in it, I would be happy. But the overarching goal is to win.
That's awesome, dude.
So in the same way that you set your goal ridiculously high and aim low, or not aim low, ridiculously high and, and hit a little low,
it's better to have found out, like, oh wow, this is what I'm capable of.
Exactly.
Which could be much higher than someone else set being quote unquote realistic.
Yeah, so like for example, if I set my goal to just not even place, just compete, who would know if I would ever even be able to qualify? Yeah. Even at this point, like who knows? Like I don't. But I vision myself every day completely. I see it. So
that's awesome, dude. I know we wound up on the mindset path from powerlifting. So after, we're kind of pulling it back just so people do have an idea of how you did get on that bodybuilding track. After you did a couple powerlifting meets.
So Todd, like I said, was a powerlifter, so that was his main expertise. So that's kind of what I learned on my way up from basically 11. Well, not immediately, but from like 11 to 13 was just all the beginner stuff, perfecting the technique. And that's a big thing too. A lot of people don't understand that. I spent basically 2 to 3 years doing the most boring, stupid machine exercises, literally no free weights for like practically 2 years to absolutely perfect. Like Todd was a stickler. Like I don't know if there's anyone else that would be more hard on you for form. He would literally walk up to me while I was in the middle of exercises and correct my form. It didn't matter what I was doing, and I'd always watch for him in the corner of my eye too. Like whenever, I don't know what this is also the kind of person that I want to be. I would see him walking around and like, oh, you gotta make sure everything's all right, doing everything correctly. Like that's the kind of person I want to be when I walk in the room. I want them to notice that I'm there, and I want them to work harder because of that. So like that's something I picked up from him as well. But I did multiple powerlifting meets from age of I think my first one was when I was 13, and really liked it, loved it actually. Crazy, see these grown men like benching literally over 800 pounds, and I'm 13, don't even know what's humanly possible. At this point. Like the biggest weights I've seen are from the gym, and like Todd benching 405 maybe. If I'm lucky, I get to see that. So going there and seeing all that was really opened my eyes to like, wow, this is what lifting is. And so from there on, I was pretty much hooked. The second one I went to was actually in a UFC cage, which was really cool. That was crazy.
Where's that?
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. I've been to so many, I don't know. But yeah, I've probably competed at least 2 powerlifting meets a year until I was graduated high school. And even then, I probably did like one a year, one every other year. But my biggest reason for, I think bodybuilding would have been, I think it was, I can't remember his name, but there's someone else that competed that was from our area. And I told Todd, like, hey, like, I want to try and do this. Mm-hmm. And I probably told him when I was like 16 or 17. Didn't really think it was worth it to do it at the time. But then whenever my senior year or my freshman year of college, I revisited the idea and told him like, hey, like for real, I want to do this. So then I just went balls in and did my first show and really liked it. Enjoyed it a lot. It was way more difficult than I honestly would have expected. Like if you have like people that have never done anything bodybuilding, especially a show, talk to anyone that's done one. It is insanely difficult.
What boggles my mind the most, coming from a wrestling standpoint, like I see a bunch of people cut weight quickly to rip water weight out, but the way that I've seen you and other friends that we have that have competed slowly cut weight over time, because it matters so much more about your physique. No one like cares what like as you're on stage, they don't care like what your weight is on the scale. They care how chiseled you are, your striations in your muscle, and of course your posing, but the amount that goes in before the show is unlike anything else.
It's absurd, and it all leads up to like basically like essentially a few seconds on stage. It's just really the crazy part.
Yeah.
All these insurmountable goals almost that seem like you have all this time leading up to them, and then it lasts for maybe a second or maybe just a second, like a split second thought. For example, like me getting into PT school, from the time I entered college up until the end of my college career, after my college career, because I just got accepted last month, everything led up to that single moment when I got that acceptance letter. So you're doing all this work, whether it be in school like that or whether it be in bodybuilding, and you're doing all this work. And even if I never become Mr. Olympia, I'm doing all this work. Like regardless, I'll never know if I don't try. But you're putting in all this work, and like you're starting to wonder, like, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Like, and that one second, that one insurmountable second comes, and you're like, it was worth it. Like I think that's one of the greatest feelings. You get that affirmation, and
yeah,
that makes it all worth it. All the work you put in it, it's 100% worth it.
Lots to unpack.
Kai Green right there. It's a little rip off of him.
Yeah. But speaking of Kai Green and other inspirations, is there anyone outside of, I know Todd obviously, but anyone else that you like really look up to? It doesn't just have to be in the bodybuilding community, but like mentors you have, or it might be authors or other bodybuilders that you've like followed really closely. Like who's inspired you the most?
There's so many in different areas. Like I know Ben Mikulski's a big one, just in terms of actual applied knowledge in bodybuilding. He's probably one of my, in terms of knowledge, he'd probably be number one.
Gotcha.
In terms of like putting in the work, it is going to be Dorian Yates. He's my favorite bodybuilder. I definitely think that he's probably the greatest of all time. You can argue that fact if you want.
I don't think I'm winning an argument against you about bodybuilding competitors, but I would say Kai Green's probably my favorite just because of how intentional he is about choosing his words, and bodybuilders get a bad rap about just being, or anyone in the weightlifting community, not just bodybuilders, but you know, being a meathead.
Yeah, we're not all meatheads.
But then you listen to someone like Kai, who's so philosophical, so good with his words.
It's amazing.
To listen to him speak and then see him, like, who knows what he's competing at? Maybe
probably 300 plus, I'm sure.
Yeah,
he's
at like
insane.
3 or 4% body fat.
Yeah.
He's incredible. But yeah, I feel like even just around home, we've been blessed with so many people to look up to. But yeah, so can you talk a little bit? Well, I know we alluded to it, but what did you actually do for your cut? Like because that is like what's leading up to the competition, that and the weight training that you've already been doing. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like what's adjusted the most is like the
diet. That's 100% true. So leading up to the first one, I didn't really have much of a diet plan necessarily, which was probably the reason I didn't gain as much weight as I probably wanted to or should have. But leading up, I was probably only eating when I was hungry 5 or 6 times a day, probably.
Only 5 or 6 times a day.
5 or 6 times a day. You know, probably like around 5,000 calories, enough to be in a positive caloric balance, enough to grow.
Yeah.
But
already kind of had the physique as a bodybuilder, just haven't competed yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of that comes from sports in high school. I'm very, very thankful that I did play all the sports I did and would never go back on any of the things I did. But the diet comes in. Whenever you start, like the first thing I do personally is I cut out all like anything sugar, anything junk, anything that you basically couldn't have eaten 1,000 years ago, pretty much. So like
An interesting rule.
it works. So
Yeah, taking out all the processed foods
Yes,
and
exactly.
refined
Yeah.
sugar.
So I do that. Like basically, that's the first thing I do, and then I let that go. And within the first month, I usually, depending on how heavy I am, I can't remember the first show I did what I started my weight out at, but I know the last show I did I was 253, something around there. And the first day I did that, I really dropped within a month down to like 230, 235, which was insane. Like I know a lot of it's like just water, but
Yeah.
still it's like 20 pounds. And then after that, I start cutting out the like the good carbohydrates. Like every week I'll cut them down just a little bit, probably like every 2 weeks, 200 grams or so, depending on how much I start with. Like so, if I start with 600 grams of carbs, I'll probably cut down 100 grams every 2 weeks, and then keep doing that. And as I do that, I'll slightly increase my protein just to keep the muscle mass as much as possible and keep myself satiated and full. But that's basically that until the show comes. And what I really learned this last show actually was really crazy, because what I did was I actually swapped out my carbs and I swapped in a lot of fat, basically like a modified keto diet, which I'm a huge fan.
I agree.
I really like that. It's hard to stick to because I really like my carbs, but highly recommend it if you have any kind of issues or stuff. It's definitely something to look into if you don't know what it is. But basically I kind of switched to a modified keto diet where like my carbs were probably 10%, maybe 15% of my diet, and protein was probably 60%, and the rest was fat. So it was a pretty
modified in the way that for someone that wasn't working out a lot, they weren't a bodybuilder, they would have like a higher percentage of fat there and a lower percentage of protein.
Exactly, yeah. So I have to, and the way I looked on stage, honestly, I really liked it, and I honestly wasn't really that hungry compared to my first show. Like if I would end up getting hungry, I'd just go and eat some almonds or something, maybe like a scoop of peanut butter, and that really kept me going pretty well. And I went from 253 down to about, I want to say 184.
And how long?
I think it was 4 months, 16 weeks. Yeah, it was 16 weeks.
All right. Think about that for a second. Anyone who has any, they aren't ecstatic about how they look. Maybe not even ecstatic is the right word. They're, put bluntly, they just are upset with how they look at the moment. And they're like, I feel like I just can't lose weight. Taylor here has been working out essentially every day, with few exceptions, mostly injuries, every single day since he's 11 or 12 years old. And then bulks while still working out every single day up to like 253, cuts down in several months span to 180 something. So you are capable, put it into a positive way. Like, I hope this encourages one person. You are capable of, changing your body in the way you want to change it. That is insane. And it sticks out to me that you and our other bodybuilding friends, the amount you can change your body, like,
it's absurd.
Just another one of those obstacles in a way that, like, you can change it with depending on what you're putting into it.
That's a big factor. Like, people will think if you walk a mile on the treadmill, you can go and eat that piece of cake. That piece of cake outweighs that walk on the treadmill by 10 times.
Yeah.
But like it is essentially diet, and it's really not bad if you can swap out the not good foods for the satiating whole foods, and it will really make a difference. And you'll be able to tell almost, I don't want to say immediately, but like within 2 weeks you'll be able to feel different.
Yeah. It's a simple thing to do, but a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Not too complex. I feel like I've had a lot of people, and you probably had exponentially more, ask about, what do I do? What do I eat? And then you give them an idea of what to eat, and those same people are coming up to you months later or a year later asking the same question, when in all reality, pretty much everyone has an idea, even if you aren't diving deep into nutrition literature or anything like you don't have to be a scientist to have a general idea of what's good for you. So the truth for most adults is that you know what to eat. You just have to be disciplined enough, which is again simple, not easy,
Yeah.
to follow through with that over time. And
I say my biggest recommendation for someone that's struggling with their weight is to cut out all processed foods and sugar. If you
I
do
agree.
that's all you need to do. If you cut out those two things, you will
I have
you can eat almost anything else you want and you probably won't gain weight.
I've been going hard on demonizing sugar, and
It's
it
so
has made my
bad.
friends not happy with me when I've been bringing it up. But this was actually, I know you gave a shout out to Ben Pekulski earlier. I was listening to one of his podcasts. I believe it was with Dr. Benjamin Bickman. I hope I'm giving the right person credit for this, but I believe his PhD, not sure about MD. Either way, brilliant guy, and he was talking about all of the negative implications of insulin resistance, meaning like type 2 diabetes, or even if you wouldn't be clinically diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic yet. The point is that if you don't mind me just giving like
No, go for
an
it.
overview
Yeah, go
of
for
what
it.
the
I think I know where you're going with this,
the
but go ahead.
the pathophys is. So in case it doesn't make sense to anyone and you're curious about knowing, I think the easiest way to word it is, if you think about your gastrointestinal tract, your stomach's breaking down the food, and your small intestines is where the majority of the absorption, at least for your nutrients, is happening. And for water, you have a lot in both your small and large intestines. So with something like an apple or a fruit, if you take, I don't know exactly how many grams of sugar would be in an apple,
Doesn't
but
matter.
take that and take whatever the equivalent is in something that's soda. You like take the exact same amount of grams of sugar, and if you eat them, or like eat the apple and you check your blood glucose levels, and another day you drink the same exact amount of sugar in a soda, you are going to have a much larger blood glucose spike from like that fruit juice or that soda, because it's not quite this simple, but an easy way to grasp it is, think of like a lot of the fiber in your fruits and vegetables. It takes a while for that to be broken down in your stomach, and then your digestive enzymes release mostly from your pancreas, go into your small intestine. It breaks down like what's holding together those sugars. So you break those complex carbohydrates down, and they slowly over a period of time get absorbed across your small intestines. Whereas if you like slam a soda with the exact same amount, it doesn't need to spend time in your stomach digesting. It doesn't need, like, if it's already in a simple sugar form, meaning that like it's glucose, glucose or fructose, which are just single sugars, not bound. It's like not a polysaccharide. It's not in a chain, so it doesn't need broken down by digestive enzymes. It's just gonna fly across your small intestine. It's gonna jack up your blood glucose, and the problem with the high blood glucose then that results is that so more insulin gets released. You know, what would the word be, like in an equivalent ratio to, or like linearly related to the amount of blood glucose that is like that you have. So if you have a higher blood glucose, you have a higher insulin release. If you have a higher insulin release, your cells over time, if it keeps responding to insulin, the importance is that when your cells respond to insulin, they upregulate glucose transporters, so that way your cells can actually pull your glucose from the blood, or transport the glucose from the blood and use them. And then you get into actually using cellular energy systems. So we won't go into that, but the point is, if you're continuously stimulating those cells with insulin over time, like any other cellular stimulus, you're going to downregulate those receptors. So over time, the same amount of blood glucose spike isn't going to yield the same amount of glucose receptors. And it sounds, well, I shouldn't say simple, but it sounds like, okay, but like that's a great thing. Thanks for the history lesson on what your body's doing over time. But what the implications of that insulin resistance,
It, it's
incredible.
there's so much that goes
So
on because of that.
this is where, sorry everyone for taking a while to get that out. I hope it was comprehensible. What Dr. Ben Bickman was talking about, he was like talking about the negative implications of that. The one that stuck out to me the most was that insulin resistance was, to this date, the biggest predictor of Alzheimer's. And that's like even if you don't even start talking about all of the other negative implications of type 2 diabetes or anything that falls under the umbrella of insulin resistance, already what seems to be the fear of many people, including myself, is dementia and anything else that is related to the disease state of Alzheimer's. So that alone is something that sticks out to me of, boy, do I want to remain insulin susceptible and keep my cells respond to that stimulus by and far. But things like that, things like all the other problems with type 2 diabetes, like not being able to mobilize your fat reserves as well, and like in a good way to use like the fat you're storing for energy, like the peripheral blood flow problems, which is why you often hear about like a bunch of diabetics having amputations, because I want to riddle everyone with more pathophys, but you don't get blood flow as well to like the peripheral parts of your limbs. There's so much negative that goes into that, and even though you can be genetically predispositioned to like more or less insulin susceptibility in different ways, by and far you can control the amount of sugar you're putting in your system, especially when it's refined sugar.
And going off that real quick, the one of the other motivating factors for me is like, even if I don't achieve any of the goals that I want to achieve, so say I achieve nothing, which obviously is, but say I achieve nothing, at the absolute worst, my kids will have the best genetics that I could give them.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, I'm going to start them off as best as they could to achieve whatever they end up wanting to achieve.
That's
and in the
true.
same way, if you don't, this isn't to demonize anyone, this is just a fact. If you don't take care of your body and you don't, like, it's been proven that sperm is not as healthy whenever.
Yeah, I saw. I think Dr. Rhonda Patrick does that.
Yep, and it really.
Yeah, and it was specifically through like sugar intake.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
it poses such a much bigger problem to your kids. Like they like if the starting block for your kid is at say necessarily a 0, having those implications, you basically start your kid out at a negative. You can start out at like a negative 10, negative 20, whatever. Whereas someone else could be starting their kid out at a positive 20. Like, why wouldn't even if you're not gonna have kids, but if you were, like, that's at least one motivating factor to put in there.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to do it for yourself, like, who cares? Like, okay, don't do it for yourself. Do it for your kid. Like, it will literally make a difference. Like, it will make a difference.
Yeah, it is scary to me how like unknowledgeable I was, and by all means, don't know like. What are you looking for? Oh, your water. I was like, by all means, not an expert in anything endocrinology, let alone everything that is tied to like diabetes and the epigenetics tied to that. But just from what I have tried to learn in the past couple years, it's scary to me, just like all the sugar that I ate on my own, like growing up, and it's like scary to me.
I don't think it's as big a deal as, like, I mean, it is definitely a huge deal, but like there's something different between having one spike in sugar that may not be good. So like if you say you eat one candy bar versus eating, say you wake up, you eat a 56-gram sugar energy drink, and then 3 hours later, you have some processed McDonald's or whatever, easy carbohydrate sugars there. And then 4 hours later for supper, you have like bag of potato chips and another thing of soda. And like, what you're just constantly spiking that insulin all day long, so it never gets a chance to come down. And that's really what messes it up. Not necessarily having that one single spike isn't gonna
Yeah.
isn't gonna mess. Like, don't think that we're saying that
Yeah.
you're just by eating a candy bar you're gonna die. Get type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
But like when you do it constantly, it's gonna it won't let your insulin come down.
Yeah.
And that's gonna pose a long-term problem.
Yeah, I agree. So we got to that because we were saying you adopted the modified ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
And
so basically, like, the way, so I'll put in perspective like how I eat off when I'm trying to put on as much muscle as possible, which I try to keep it as clean as possible. Like I said, like, I don't like to do a lot of the processed foods. Like, I never eat fast food. I'll do my best to stay away from candy. I never drink soda, stuff like that. But the things I do is I try to aim for at least 500 to 600 grams of carbs when I'm trying to gain weight, something around there. Sometimes more, sometimes less. It really depends on what my meals are. I usually eat like at least 6 meals a day. Like, I hit that solidly, but I typically aim for 8. My average is probably 7 though. It depends on what time.
I know you count macros more than calories, but just to give an estimate, how many calories when you're bulking?
When I'm bulking, it's easily 7, like 7,000. Yeah, I would put it up closer to 8, probably, depending on how I'm bulking.
Dang.
But yeah, this was before I knew all this about sugar. So, but my junior year of college, whenever I got up to 253, I was eating. I would be surprised if I was eating less than 8,000 calories a day. Honestly, like, it was brutal. But now it's like I try to keep it like a little lower, probably around 6, 7 right now. 6 is probably a good number to throw out. But like I said, like, somewhere between. I don't count my fats until I want to start trying to cut weight and do keto. But
yeah,
my fats, I stay away from the bad ones like the trans fat. But I don't really count those as much. They just kind of go where they go. But in terms of carbs, it's usually between 500 and 600, and then by protein is at least 350, usually in the 400s. So, like, for example, 8 meals at 50 grams of protein a meal is 400 grams. So if I only hit my 6 meals, I'm getting at least 300 grams of protein for someone weighing like 230 pounds.
Yeah.
Versus my optimal is 400, 450. So I try to aim for.
As opposed to at the end of your cut, how much protein would you get in a day?
Probably 400 or 450 at least.
Really, still?
Yeah, because I up my protein when I start to lose weight to keep the muscle mass.
Yeah, in hindsight, I remember you. Boy, this is gonna sound crazy. As someone not super familiar with bodybuilding,
go. I know where you're going.
But taking scoops of protein, putting it in. This is just a few days out from the competition. Put like some scoops of protein in like a cereal bowl and put in just a little bit of water, enough to make this protein powder essentially like a pudding, and then like put it in the fridge so that way it tastes better, and then get it out and eat it. So it's like might be one of the only meals you had that day was essentially protein powder and enough water to make it kind of a pudding-like consistency.
Yep. For anyone that is doing a body mixture or cutting, it tastes really good. You can also crack an egg in there and mix that into it. It literally will taste like cake batter. As long as your protein powder tastes good, it'll taste really good. But it's definitely a hack I found for this last show.
Anyone from the outside looking is like, boy, does that sound terrible. 100%. That's the last thing that I want to do. What a fun meal.
Like, for example, yesterday, I think it was yesterday morning. It might have been the day before. Regardless, I did cereal. So I had a big bowl of cereal, and I used a whole carton of egg whites for my milk, and I poured a little bit of milk in and just mixed that up, and didn't really even tasted the egg whites, but it was pretty good. Anybody else who wants to try that, you can try that too.
You heard it here first.
That's pretty much what the diet's like. When I'm like maintaining my body weight, it's probably close to like 300, 400 grams of carbs. The thing about me though is like it's weird. Like, I will literally get hungry if I'm hungry right now because I haven't eaten in the last like 2 hours. But if I can't even sleep. Like, I'll wake up in the middle of the night because I'm hungry, which is insane. I think
yeah, that is insane.
I get so hungry. Like, it's not even like people will be like, "Oh, you're not hungry." Like, no, you don't understand. Like, I am actually legitimately hungry right now, and it literally is like every 2 hours, like on the dot, which is kind of creepy, kind of scary. But I don't know. That's just how my metabolism, which I'm blessed with, is ridiculously fast.
Dude, I remember you telling me during your bulk for, I believe, the second bodybuilding show that you did, there was a night where you checked your weight right when you went to bed and right when you woke up, and you had floated a little over 10
It
pounds.
was it was ridiculous. Even in high school, I would float like 5 or 6 pounds when I was resting. Like before I'd go to sleep, say a pound over, and I'd wake up 4 pounds under for the wrestling tournament.
I remember when you and I were in a room together at Johnstown at regionals, I had thought 100% you would not make weight because it was just like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours out, and I think it was like delayed for a snowstorm or something. It was like 4 or 5 hours out from weigh-ins, and you were like, I don't know, up like a pound and a half over, and you're just like, I don't need to work out or anything, it will come off. I would have been losing my mind if I was a pound and a half over just a couple hours out.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, honestly. My metabolism, like I'm super happy that I have it. And really, like honestly, to get even like spiritual with this, like I think that this is something that I was like, I don't want
Like
to
blessed
born,
with.
yeah, but blessed with. But like, it's not even that I want to. I obviously want to do this, but it's not even like that. It's more like
You almost
I'm
feel
so-
chosen for it.
yeah, like I'm so pulled to this that it's actually kind of almost creepy sometimes. I'm like a lot of things I don't even think about. Like it's just such a habit that like I just do. But like I literally, it's not that I want to do this. It's like I have to do this. Like you have to do this. I don't like when I don't want to go to the gym, like I get the same feelings anyone gets. Like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym today. Like I don't want to eat that 8th meal.
Yeah.
Like you don't get to not eat it. Like you have to. And I don't know where that come from. I didn't really have like a stern father figure like that would like push me real hard when I was younger or anything like that. So I don't know where it comes from, but it is definitely something that is not something that I think that I chose to do on my own or something that I want to do. It's definitely something that I have to do. I have to do this. Like you have to work out. You have to eat. You have to do X, Y, and Z.
I think that kind of speaks to when you find a passion, it doesn't feel like, it's mandatory. I mean, it's kind of reversing the words that you used a little bit. So just for clarity, it's still hard. Like
Oh,
there's,
100%,
you
yeah.
still don't, you feel the pull to not want to, in this context, go work out because it takes a lot of effort. It's hard. It's physically painful.
Oh my word.
But
if I can go off real quick.
yeah, go
I
ahead.
trained legs on Tuesday this week, and like I don't lift incorrectly to say like with technique wise,
Mhm.
but I trained my legs so hard that my lower back like still hurts today, and my legs are still sore, but they're not like ridiculously sore. My lower
Mhm.
back is so sore from squatting. Like, the amount of intense
Yeah,
the
so
pressure from
he's not an alien, folks. He feels the extreme pain. But where I was going with that is that when you find like something you're so passionate about, even though you feel the same pull as everyone else feels to not do that thing, you care about it so much that it's like, okay, I see you feeling. I feel that, but like I feel the fear or you feel the pain or whatever, but you're gonna do it anyway. It's not even
Yeah.
something you have to consciously debate. Like
No,
I will feel like I don't want to work out, but I don't have to convince myself to go work out.
There's been
Like I'm just gonna go
Yeah.
do it. I know that I'm going to go do it.
There's been multiple times where I'm like, okay, I didn't get enough sleep last night. I don't feel like going to the gym. I should just go to sleep early. Whatever. I'll be like literally having these conversations in my head, trying to figure out a way to convince myself to not, like legitimately trying to convince myself to not go to the gym because I either shouldn't or I don't want to. One of the two. But like literally while I'm having these thoughts, I'm making my pre-workout, getting ready to go to the gym like at the same time, and it's just like it happens every time. It's crazy. I don't know. I don't get it, but it's pretty cool. I mean, I think it's something that is a good thing, but
Yeah.
it's not human. I'm not human. Like I have those. It's just a weird way that they get ignored.
I think that's amazing. I know we've been going on for a little while, but there's one last thing I did want to get into, and that's kind of like your morning routine or your daily routine, whatever it is that you feel tied to that helps you feel optimized to go through your day. I know we don't have to break down like the diet again and the working out again, but like
I do want to say something else on my diet real quick though.
yeah, sure, of course.
So like a lot of people bash protein powder and protein shakes, which I don't. It might have made sense. Might have made more sense 20 years ago. But if you can get a high quality protein powder, I really don't see the problem with obviously it's not going to ever be as good as food, but I don't see the problem with supplementing that. Like, so if you can't get a meal in, or if you can't get 6 meals a day, but you can only eat, say, 2 meals a day, put 2 protein shakes in. Like, the way that I try to structure my diet is I do 4 whole meals and 4 protein shakes. So like, it might also be why I'm so hungry all the time, because that digests a little bit faster. But like in the morning I'll eat a whole food, and then just from there off, it's every other meal is either a protein shake or a whole meal. And I think that's also one of the reasons that I'm able to maybe get as big as I am, because I'm able to get all that protein in. And while a lot of people are like, oh, I'm only going to eat if I can get real food, and like, well, if you can't actually eat the food because you're so full, like, what's the point? Like, you're not going to eat anyway, so why not? For me, it's like,
or if you're at work and like,
exactly. And for me, it's like, I'd rather have something there than not have anything.
mm-hmm.
You know, like, it's better for me to it's better to have something and not need it than need it and not have it, for example.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I come at that with. So like, if I highly recommend, if you can't get your meals in, like, supplement protein shakes.
Yeah.
I mean, I do not think that you should only have protein shakes, but it's like
the all protein shake diet coming soon.
But like, if you can, like, 50%, I think is fine. I don't see what's wrong with that, and like, it's obviously working for me. So
yeah, for sure.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
I think it's working pretty well.
But yeah, my morning routine. So actually, this is kind of crazy. I know we talked about this before, but I just started like meditating and doing affirmations, like, probably 3 weeks ago, something like that. And I don't know how much you believe in the law of attraction, or like
as in the idea of like
thoughts become things kind of thing.
Yeah, whatever you're repeating to yourself, your mantras, is like what you're kind of inviting into your life.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, I highly think that whatever you think, you become. And which makes sense. Like, if you're only thinking negative thoughts, like, if an opportunity presents itself and you only have negative thoughts about it, like, you're not going to take advantage of the opportunity, because to you it's not an opportunity. So it might sound like hoopla, but like it has practical implications, and there has been studies and stuff on it.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth looking into if you haven't looked into it.
For example, like, opportunities that are always there, you might not see
as opportunities.
Yeah, you might not see as opportunities, like, whereas if you're like, I don't know, talking about something, or like repeating to yourself something, and like whatever your morning routine is, like some meditation practice, you're going to be so much more quicker to see those opportunities and be quick to seize them, because you see it unfold. So it's not like woo and the idea that you magically make things appear that wouldn't otherwise. It's that by repeating these things to yourself, it's like, then you see that, like, an opportunity that would be there no matter what, but you're quick to see it unfold, and then you're quick to seize it. At least that's how I think of like that sort of law of attraction.
I agree. So like I started doing that like 3 weeks ago. And like, affirmations are things you say to yourself. Like, for anyone that doesn't know, an affirmation is something like repeating something to yourself that you want. So for example, if you want to be confident, you just on a piece of paper you write down, I am confident, and then you read that out loud. So like, that's one of the things that's on my piece of paper. Not necessarily because I'm not confident, but like I said just a minute ago, like, why it's better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. So like, if I can be more confident, I'd like to be more confident. Yeah. Same thing with intelligent, anything like that. I have written down. So I did that, and like, one of the things I wrote down was like, I am a physical therapist. I have my CSCS. Those are 2 ones I can point out to real quick, because I've been doing this for like 3 weeks. Just in the morning, actually. The podcast I got it off of was a Tom Billy one with Rachel Hollis, which when she said that she did this, it's the exact same thing. It's very similar. She did it, I think, 10 years. She started it 10 years before she really became who she was. And she said that if she looks back at that piece of paper 10 years ago, that's exactly who she is today. Like, everything that she had written down, like that's what she is today, which is really crazy to think about. But I don't doubt it.
Yeah, so like, you're wording it in a way that,
I'm not saying I want this or I'm going to get this, because whenever you say something like that, like, all your brain recognizes as the want or the going. Like, it immediately recognizes that, oh, you don't have that already, so let's focus on that. Same thing whenever you say don't, like, you focus on don't, or like, if I were to tell you don't walk or don't run, or you're gonna focus on the don't. But if I just told you walk, you'd be more likely to walk. Versus the same thing when like any words like that. It's more important to not use the don't or the never, which is something I read in a book, I think by, I want to say Napoleon Hill, but I'm not sure.
Not sure.
I can't remember.
But what stuck out to me when you were telling me this a few days ago was that you had not yet taken your exam for the CSCS, and you were writing it down as if you already had it.
Yep.
Today you got it.
Today I got it. And honestly, I'm gonna be completely honest. When I went in there and sat down, I was pretty nervous because like the only way I studied was from my previous knowledge and like knowledge I've gained from podcasts. Which, if you don't listen to podcasts, if you don't listen to podcasts, you're probably not listening to this. But you really should. Like, there's some really great educational stuff out there, and you can do it whenever you're just not doing anything. Like when you're driving, instead of listening. And I know Cole is too, but like, once you get to the point where you want to listen to a podcast over listening to music, like that's when you know you really want to grow, you really want to learn more. And
yeah.
So there's that.
Something I've heard you say a lot is like, I feel like I can't learn enough.
Oh my word, it's insane. Once you realize how much is out there to just like, it's overwhelming. Like I have so many podcasts on my next up, and it just keeps growing. And like, but yeah, so back to the affirmations. For the last 3 weeks, I've just been saying, and this was before I knew I got into PT school, before I got my CSCS. Obviously, I was just saying like, I am a physical therapist. I have my CSCS, and among other things, there are other future things. There's and within 3 weeks of doing that, like I had no expectation of going to physical therapy school. I figured that I already got knocked out of 4 schools. This was before I was doing this. I wasn't expecting to get into the 5th one. Like, why would I? So maybe it's hoo-ah.
Yeah.
But I got into this fifth school after saying that I did. And then I didn't know how to study for my CSCS. I basically studied from an app, which was the NSCA CSCS Pocket Prep app, which was really all I studied, other than my own knowledge and that I gained on my own. And I went to that test, and I really, honestly, after I finished, I did not think I passed. I did not think I passed. And I came out, and they gave me my thing back, and it said I passed. So I was like, well, all right, I'll take it. So I did those 2 things. I usually meditate for like 15, and like when I did.
What do you do when you meditate?
When I meditate, I just like kind of sit. I try to get outside if I can. I'd rather be outside, but if it's like cold or something like that, I'd probably just stay inside. But I like just be in a chair like this, and I just close my eyes, and like I don't. If you really want to, up until those 3 weeks ago, like I've heard a lot of successful people talk about meditating, and I know there's other positive things to it. And honestly, it was just one of those things where I was like it just doesn't seem like it's for me. It's not, it's kind of weird. People don't really, if you tell people somebody you meditate that doesn't know what you're talking about, like what's wrong? Are you crazy? Like, are you a Buddhist? Nothing against Buddhists, but so yeah, I Emily Fletcher, I listened to a podcast on Tom Billy with Emily Fletcher, and that one, the way I don't know how she phrased it or what she did, but she really struck me. And like, I looked up her guided meditation list. So I did that for like a few days, and after I kind of got the hang of it, I just started doing that. And really, all I do is like I just focus on my breathing and really slow my outward breathing out, which really spikes up that parasympathetic nervous system, slows everything down. And once you do that, you kind of get into like the way I would describe it is almost like, not, I wouldn't say lucid dreaming, but kind of like you're asleep but you're awake.
Yeah.
So it's just that, it's like that's the only way I can describe it. Like, you can come out of it at any moment, but it's almost to the point where like you don't want to come out of it. Like, you just like, it's not nothingness, but it's just kind of peaceful.
I agree. So I actually haven't talked about this a whole lot, so hope I'm not weird out to my close friends and family members, but I feel like I've only talked about this with maybe you and Nick so far. But I'd say for about like 5-ish months or so, for my morning routine, what I would do is very similar to that. As after I like get up and get out of bed, I'll like come back and like usually just sit cross-legged on my bed, or in some cases sit cross-legged in front of a fish tank, look at the fish. And what I do is very similar to that. So I'll start a timer for 3 minutes. I'll close my eyes for 3 minutes, and what I do for that portion of this is I just try to quiet my mind, and a lot of times I just repeat the word like focus to myself just because I want to have like extreme mental clarity. So if any point my mind starts to drift, and it does a lot,
Yeah.
the rep of it, like the part of the meditation, or like the skill of the meditation, it isn't that you're going to be, a like 100% clear of any thoughts. I don't know if anyone's experiencing that. What the rep of it is, mean that like the skill of it is to recognize that your mind's wandering and then pull it back. And you're going to keep having wandering thoughts. That's okay. The point is that you want to get quicker and quicker about realizing your mind's wandering, and you pull it back. And I noticed that then throughout the entire day of maybe I'm going through some busy work, or I'm having a conversation with someone and it's just like small talk, and my mind starts to wander, and then some other part of my mind is like, hey, like your mind's starting to wander, like pull it back, focus, be present on whatever the task at hand is. So that's the importance of that segment. After that 3 minutes is up, the timer goes off, I'll stop the timer, and then I'll go into a gratitude segment. So at this point, I'm trying to like let my thoughts wander, and I think about the people closest to me, the journey that I'm on, maybe just like things I use, like simple things, maybe like a pen and the chair I'm sitting on, or maybe as complex as like the internet. I'll like think about things that I use, and I don't try to like think out in words about my gratitude. I just try to like feel grateful about it. So I go through that for like 3 to 4 different things. And then after I go through that gratitude set, or like that gratitude segment, then I'll pray for maybe like 3 to 5 minutes. So usually I'll just like pray about whatever struggles or conflicts I have, and for my close friends and family, that like conflicts they may have that I know of that are going on. So I'll pray for them and for my own personal conflicts. And then after that, I'm done with the prayer segment and kind of like the whole mindfulness slash meditation. And then I immediately go into picking out, I'd say 3 to 5 things that I need to get done that day. Usually it's things that fall into the same category. Like I'll decide exactly what I'm going to work out that day, or exactly what kind of exercises I'm going to do that day. So that like counts as one. I'll like pick out the workout I'm going to do that day. When it's during the academic year, which is for me the majority of the year, I'll pick out not only what subject I'm going to study that day, but like from this page like is what I need to cover that day. I'm very specific about what objectives I need to accomplish that day. And then when I'm done with that, then I'm like, all right, now I can go about my day. And it sounds like a lot, but it usually only takes me like 15 minutes to do.
Yeah, it doesn't take long. I was just saying, mine's a little bit longer, but it's probably like closer to 20, 30 minutes, because I usually try to meditate like 10 to 15 minutes. And then after that, I do my affirmations immediately after that, just because like I feel like my brain's almost like refreshed, like in that deep mind state. So like it helps with the affirmations, and I have like a long list of those. And like honestly, like I said, I think that it's better to have them and not need them than need them not have them. Like anything you even slightly want to increase or slightly want to have or something like that, I think it's important to write down. And then after that, I will do I told you about this, like the 5 ideas in, 5 ideas out. This is honestly the hardest thing. Hardest
and I believe this
morning.
was from James Altucher.
Yeah.
On Tom Bilyeu's.
Yeah, we got a lot of Tom Bilyeu going on.
Shout out Tom Bilyeu. But yeah, talk about that a little bit.
So basically, what this guy said was that you have a idea muscle kind of thing, which needs exercise in the same way a muscle needs exercise. So like the more that you can think of new ideas, unique ideas, regardless of how stupid they are or how bad they might seem, you just need to think of 5 unique ideas.
Yeah, and he like writes them down each day.
He started out with 1 unique idea a day. I tried to start with 5, which was a little bit difficult. I'm probably gonna end up cutting it back, honestly, because I usually spend like 10 minutes trying to think of 5 things that are unique. It's difficult, which kind of actually makes me upset because it realizes how little my idea muscle is. So it's definitely something I want to keep working on.
But it gets you more and more creative.
It really does. Yeah, it really helps. Like I even know it's probably, if I end up skipping anything, it's that, which I wish it wasn't, but it's just what takes up the most time. But like I think I was doing that for maybe a week before I started having like legitimately like decent ideas, and I was like out of the 5 I picked, like 1 or 2 of them were actually good and like quality ideas. So I
Yeah. And from what I gathered, the point of doing this exercise isn't that you're actually coming up with quality ideas. Otherwise, you'll waste your entire
yeah
day away being upset with the ideas you're coming up with. The point is just to get your mind thinking in new ways and trying to go from nothing and just be like, all right, what's something that no one has thought of before, or like some new invention or innovation. And you're probably going to come up with some, more often than not, crazy / unuseful ideas. And that's totally okay. The point is that you're getting better at being creative in the moment. And, I mean, yeah, I guess just being creative in the moment.
Yeah, 100%. And then after that, I usually read. Right now, I've been reading my Bible, just like five section, like five not paragraphs, like 5 pages, I guess. And I've been doing that. I just got one of Tom Bilyeu's. If you go to his page and look at his book reading list, I just got the book Mindset, just his first recommended book.
Gotcha.
So I'm gonna start digging into that too, and that's probably the biggest, because I used to love to read in high school and in junior high. You couldn't catch me without a book.
Yeah. Are you doing more like hardback books or like audiobooks?
I'd rather do the hardback, just because I actually enjoy the actual fact of reading, and I think it's better to do it that way. Because then I can take notes and whatever else I might be interested in. I can like highlight stuff and write stuff down. And there's also like, it definitely happens during podcasts where I'll miss stuff on a podcast and just not even realize it because I was doing something else. And have to replay the entire podcast, something like that. And I don't want to do that with a book. So in the same way, when you're reading a book and your mind starts to wander and you completely,
you're kind of going over the words and they're like, oh yeah, I wasn't really.
I don't know at all what happened on the last page.
Yeah,
it's the exact same thing. So
it's frustrating when that happens.
But that's definitely the number one thing I want to get back into is reading. That's a big one that a lot of successful people say they need to do. That you need to do, and that's one of the biggest ones that I don't do. Apart from obviously listening to podcasts and audiobooks, but I think the actual book will help. And you can get used books. Like I know I told you this, on average, the amount of books that I want to read, add them all the prices up for all the used ones, and the price came up to like $9, I think, on average per book. And if I go through a book a month, it's $9 a month, which would be the same price for pretty much any audible trial or anything like that. So I'd rather have the hardback than just like slowly build up a library. That way I can lend them out to people if they want a book to read.
I got you. All right, dude. We've been going at it for quite a while, but I really enjoyed it. And yeah, anything else you want to say? Can you at least tell everyone where they can find you at?
Yeah, so a few things I can say. I'm primarily on Instagram, Tayfos, TayTayFos. I just started up a YouTube channel, which is primarily aimed at, which I'm no YouTuber, and I know it's not it's not always the best videos. I only have a few out, but I'm basically primarily doing this to try and build up not a compilation, but like a collection of videos of basically every exercise that there is out there, so that in the future, which I know, like this is just one of those steps of preparation, I guess, that whenever I have my own physical therapy clinic or something like that, like a personal training business or something like that, with my CSCS, I can recommend people like to check out, like, oh, this is this exercise and this is how I would recommend you do it. So like if you want to check out how I would recommend you do it, go to this video and check it out. They're pretty short. I try to cover as much as I can, and then there's some things I usually forget, but regardless, they're up there. I'm not doing it for anything other than to help people, and that's why I'm not really putting a lot of I don't want to say time into it, because I am putting a lot of time into it, because I'm really bad at YouTube.
Yeah, but you don't want to make money from it.
Yeah, like it's nothing that I want to make money from. It's nothing that I am trying to make money from. It's just, like I said, something I want to really put out, because a lot of people also like, and they're aimed at people that have never worked out before. So whether or not you've never worked out before, whether you're an expert, like I break it all down. I try to break it all down as much as I can, and really explain everything, especially some key concepts that get missed whenever you typically start training. So like if someone never touched a weight before, I want them to be able to basically go and watch this video on whatever exercise, and then be able to go and perform that exercise correctly, with everything that, and I know I cover all the key concepts in that aspect at least. So if you're a beginner, they would definitely be good. There might be some things I forget to include if you're more advanced, but I do my best. And then the other thing I'm trying to do, I know, obviously your shirt, my shirt, I'm trying to build up my own clothing brand, just so that there's a few reasons behind that. I know that once I get my name out there with bodybuilding, I kind of blow up. I don't want to have to sign my name off to a supplement company. I want to end up having either our own or my own supplement company, and I want to have my own clothing line to go with that, so that people that support me can literally support me without buying supplements if that's not something they use. And I try to keep it within reason in terms of price. And right now I'm trying to build a website for that. And that's like one of my side hustles that I have on my that's another thing I forgot to mention on my to-do list in the morning. Like I always have a to-do list where I write down everything I need to get done for that day. Other than like the inherent things like eat 8 times and go to the gym. Those things aren't on the list.
Yeah.
But my to-do list, like
they're already engraved.
Yeah. But those things are on there, and then or not on there. But then like anything I need to get done for the day. So for example, like me studying for my CSCS up until today was always on there. And then after I have all the things I needed to do things, it's like take one step towards your side hustle, and like whatever that side hustle may be. I have multiple different things. So for example, YouTube is one of my side hustles. My website, making more clothing, design training programs for people, which people do ask me for a lot of programs. I really think that I could make money off them. I haven't done anything with it yet. I might in the future. I'm not sure yet because that's not me.
Yeah.
But even if I do it, it would be cheap.
Yeah. Tough balance between free access to information and then making money off of your own work.
Yeah, especially now that I have my CSCS, like that's basically a certificate that allows me to make money off my own work. So that was kind of the primary reason for me getting that. So I'm probably going to try to incorporate that somehow with my website or do something with that. I'm not sure yet. A lot of plans in the works, a lot of things going on in the mind that,
Yeah.
I know.
Do you have a URL yet for that website?
I don't yet.
Okay. Well, when it comes out, we'll throw it in the show notes for everyone.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. And the YouTube is just my name, Taylor Foster. But what I'm trying to go with is Taylor Foster Fitness for my, hopefully, company and, like, I don't know where it would go, but clothing company, personal training company, hopefully physical therapy company eventually, and be Taylor Foster Fitness and Therapy. I wouldn't even have to change the thing because it's still a T. So
I like it.
with it. And then hopefully our plan will work out. I don't know if you want to dive down that hole quick or not.
We'll save that for podcast number 2 in the far future. I think that could take up a couple hours in its own.
Sounds good. Wink for everyone.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.
Peace.
Thanks for listening, everybody. You can find us on Facebook at Insights of All Trades. Find us on Instagram at Insights of All Trades. Twitter is IOAT Podcast. And send us your insights via email at insightsofalltrades@gmail.com. You can also DM us if you have some insights, and we'll include you at the beginning of the podcast. Thanks again. See you soon.